Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where it's time for my weekend reading report. My weekend reading report, a day early. Normally, this would go out on Sunday, but I'm traveling this weekend up to the rustic Vaughan Lodge, so for the rest of the videos this week, I will be underdressed. Sorry about that. And we will be without Roger for the rest of the week, probably, because he's got to stay here and, take care of stuff around the manor. Hopefully, he won't leave any messes behind for when I get home. The last time, it takes a long time to clean up blood when it's been sitting around for a couple of days. Anyway, I'm sure we won't have that problem this time. We'll see. So, there's some stuff here. Gosh, I left this book way over there. Geez, I'm so unprofessional. I've got stuff just laid out everywhere. So let's talk about the stuff I've read, the stuff I'm going to read, and some books that made their way into the manor. Even though I'm on the 500 book project, I still manage, people send me free stuff and I get free stuff. So it's not cheating, but it feels like cheating. Anyway, let's get on to the reading report. What the hell did I read this week anyway? So, mostly what I read this week was this book. This is Stephen King's Different Seasons, which I'm not going to talk a heck of a lot about because I am going to do my own video, its own video. I'm going to do its own video for this because up to this point, I've done videos on all of the Stephen King books that I've read. And so I'll just do a Different Seasons video. But let's just talk a little bit about it because I really, really like this book. I think this is probably as good as anything I've ever read by Stephen King. It's excellent. I loved all 4 stories that are in this. And I haven't seen any of the movies except, I saw Stand By Me, which is based on the body, the book in here, or the story in here. And I liked Stand By Me, but I haven't seen that since, whenever it was that movie came out. I think I went to the theater to see that, actually, so it must have been a long time ago. But I've never seen Shawshank Redemption. I've never seen the Apt Pupil movie. I don't think they've made a movie off Breathing Method, although I could be wrong. But I enjoyed all the stories. I think the story I enjoyed the most is Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Excellent story. And I didn't think that would be the one that I liked the most. Because, I'm like, prison story. But it was really good. It was really good. Everything in here was good. I liked Apt Pupil. It was actually, a cool, suspensey horror type story with loathsome characters that were fun. It was fun to hang out with these terrible characters in the nightmarish dream scenes and all that stuff. It was excellent. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The body might be the best story in here. I still like Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption better, but the body is really, really good. And I never hear anybody talk about the 4th story in here, The Breathing Method, which is actually 2 stories actually in one. And I enjoyed them both. I really liked it. I thought it was like a cool little horror story about this creepy club and the stories that people tell in it. I want to join the creepy club in this story. That'd be cool. So yeah, really like this. So that's a spoiler alert for the book, for the video that I'll eventually do on this, where I talk more in depth about my feelings and about the stories and about all the stuff going on in this Stephen King book. So yeah, Different Seasons. That was awesome. That's mostly what I read. And then I'm almost done with Pollucator, the second book in the Pollucator series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is part of the Edgar Rice Burroughs deep dive. Oh, I forgot. I'm a mess. I'm a mess today. I forgot to mention that in the 500 book challenge, the challenge where I read 500 books I own before I buy any new ones, this is It's number... Help me out here, Roger's not help. It's this number. It's this... I can never remember when I'm doing these videos what number the book is, but that's what number that is. And this is the number after that. So this is Pollucator, Edgar Rice Burroughs' Pollucator. And I'm almost done with it. I'll be done with it probably tomorrow or the next day. I'm pretty busy tomorrow. I'll probably have like 30 minutes to read tomorrow. So, yeah, this is the second in the Inner World novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs, part of the Edgar Rice Burroughs deep dive that I'm doing. It's fantastic. So far, it's every bit as good as the first Pollucator novel. It's tremendous fun. It's Edgar Rice Burroughs at the top of his game, writing adventure stories. You know, full of monsters and dinosaurs and cavemen and all that stuff. It's awesome. So I'll talk more about this book next week, because next week I'll have actually finished it, probably. So that's what I've read this week. Oh, except for comics. I have to mention comics. So I'm doing the Superman challenge, where I read Superman every day. That's the challenge, to read, 22 to 30 something pages of Superman a day, whatever a Superman story is. And every day I've managed to read Superman. So I've been reading this. This is The Man of Steel, Volume 2. It's a pretty thick hardcover book. And so I've got one more story in this to go. There's a lot of Superman issues in this hardcover. So I've got one more story to go, so I'll be done with this by tomorrow. So I'll be taking up to the lodge. I'm just going to read all 4 volumes of The Man of Steel. Just get all of John Byrne's revamp and the revamp era out of the way. Read all that. I'm just going to read right through it. And so, yeah, I'll be moving on to Man of Steel Volume 3. That's going to be the next Superman that I read. And, okay, so, wait, there was something else. I read a little bit of SpiderMan, too. I know, I read these Steve Ditko, Stan Lee SpiderMan stories a million times, and I'm reading them again. Hey, what do you want? They were awesome. So, yeah, I'm reading those again. So, that's the stuff I've read. What am I going to read? Okay, so for Edgar Rice Burroughs, for the Edgar Rice Burroughs deep dive, I'm almost finished with this. So the next couple Edgar Rice Burroughs books I've got to read: The Son of Tarzan, a masterpiece. This is a masterpiece of literature. There should be a Penguin Classics edition of The Son of Tarzan. I don't know why there isn't one. But yeah, I'll be reading this as the next book. And then it's The Man-Eater by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which is a wee little book. So those are the next 2 in Edgar Rice Burroughs. But I'm also doing the Read Every book by Stephen King, like Different Seasons, which I just finished. So I decided before, I will still have a week. I still have a week until Horror Mayhem happens. And I don't want to start early on Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. The pick for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club for May will fit right in with Horror Mayhem. It's The Three Imposters, the episodic novel by Arthur Machen. And I have that novel in here. Arthur Machen, Collected Edition, Volume 1, 1888 to 1895, edited by S.T. Joshi. So The Three Imposters, I don't want to start it before May, because it's the book for May for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. Every book in Roger's Cheap Old Book Club is available for free from Project Gutenberg. You can go on my Dopey Discord and, talk about it with some other folks who are reading Roger's Cheap Old Book Club books. Every month, it's a new cheap book. And in May, it's going to be The Three Imposters. I didn't want to start this early. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right on to reading this. So Pet Sematary, I'll be starting this in a couple days. And this will lead me into Horror Mayhem, one of the greatest horror novels ever, from what I remember, Pet Sematary. So I'm just going to read this. And the edition I have is the one that came out when that last Pet Sematary movie came out. That last Pet Sematary movie, which was... the movie wasn't... it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. Okay, maybe it was a little terrible, but... I've got the movie version of this book. Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I'll be reading this really soon. day after tomorrow, probably. I'll be starting that. So I'll be reading that up at the Rustic Fawn Lodge. What else do I have to talk about? So after that, for Stephen King, I'll be moving on to Cycle of the Werewolf for May. And I already talked about all the other stuff I'm going to be reading in May. For Horror Mayhem, you can check out my Horror Mayhem video. Now, I did get a couple things this week. I didn't buy any book. Comics don't count. Comics don't count for the 500 book challenge. They don't count. No. But I did get some books. First of all, Jeremy Fee, who has a magnificent BookTube channel. You should all watch Jeremy Fee's channel. Anyway, Jeremy Fee edited a book. He edited this book. This is Half Human Heroes. Not all heroes look the part. So Half Human Heroes, a fantasy anthology, and it looks to be really, really good. We've got some booktubers writing fiction for this book, Half Human Heroes. So it looks like an awesome anthology. Thank you very much, Jeremy Fee, for sending me this book. It's not for resale. Not for resale. It's a special early edition for the Manor. And, you know, it's really cool. You know, he really classed this book up because he got Philip Chase, the great Philip Chase, to write the foreword to this book. Or was it the introduction? It's the foreword. Yeah, it's the foreword. I'm not actually sure what's the difference between a foreword and an introduction. Roger, what's the difference between a foreword and an introduction? Roger's calling me an idiot. Anyway, the foreword, Philip Chase, the great Philip Chase, who has a magnificent BookTube channel. He writes the foreword to this. Good job, Jeremy Fee, getting Philip Chase to do that. And then Jeremy Fee actually has a story in here. And there's a bunch of people that have stories in here. Who else we got? We got P.M. Brown. Dane Cobain has a story in here. And Jessica Haas. S.D. Houston. We've got a few. David Wiley is in here. David Wiley, the great David Wiley. The great and amazing David Wiley. That's the first two. He's the great and amazing David Wiley. That's just how you should call him. When you see him, you should say, look, there's the great and amazing David Wiley. Anyway, the great and amazing David Wiley has a story in here which makes it worth it right there. You should all buy this book because it's amazing. Anyway, Jeremy Fee, thank you for sending me this. That was cool. Got a couple other books. I went to the recycling center because I had to get rid of some light bulbs. Those long fluorescent tube lights. Anyway, you have to get rid of those at a recycling center, someplace where they can, deal with all its toxicity. So we have a recycling center. It's either in Albany or El Cerrito. I can never remember where it is. Anyway, I went to either Albany or El Cerrito, and I went to the recycling center there, and there's a section set up for books. You could take the books you want recycled, which is horrifying, and they'll set it up so that on the shelves there are all these books, so you can go there and get free books and rescue them from recycling. Recycling a book just seems wrong. It seems wrong. So I rescued a couple books. The first book is Tales of the South Pacific. This is by James Michener. What, Rhonda? What? I'm trying to do a video here. Hey, shh. Anyway, James Michener, Tales of the South Pacific. So I've never read one of this guy's books. I've never read a Michener book. He's the author of Hawaii and a bunch of other gigantic books about places. And this, I think, is about a place. This is Tales of the South Pacific. So I don't know if this is, I'm assuming it's a short story collection, but they're calling it a novel in the back. It's the remarkable novel. This remarkable novel has been one of the greatest bestsellers of modern times with nearly 3 gazillion billion trillion copies in print. That's a lot. Gazillion billion trillion. Wow, that's a lot, man. You did good with this, Michener. So I've never read this. And is this a war novel? one of the greatest novels to come out of World War II. So I guess this would work for BookTube at War. Yeah, so that's cool. So I got that, and I also found Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown. Now, believe it or not, I've never read this book. I know, I'm an idiot. So I've never read this book. And I don't have a copy of this book, so now I do. It was free. They're both free. They're both free. They were free. I also found something else, which is ridiculous. So, this is Steve Donoghue's favorite Planet of the Apes movie. This is a book all about the worst Planet of the Apes movie ever made. And it's got all of these fantastic pictures and photographs and all kinds of stuff. It's all about the worst Planet of the Apes movie. And I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan. This was the worst Planet of the Apes movie. This was Tim Burton's crappy Planet of the Apes film, which Steve Donoghue loves. He loves this movie. Does somebody... I've got to see if I have Steve Donoghue's address so I can send him this. I'm sure he would cherish it and, you know, linger over every page. Oh, yes, this movie was so awesome. Yeah, it's the best. You've got the screenplay here, so you can, like, you know, you and your mummy can, you know, speak the dialogue to this masterpiece of cinema. It's awesome. So, yeah. I have it. I've got that. So I've got that. And I also got a couple comics in the mail. I get Epic Collections every 5 minutes. So this is The Hulk, The Lone and Level Sands. The Hulk, The Lone and Level Sands. This is the end of the Peter David era, I believe. And this is volume 24, stories from 1998 to 1999. Now, I don't know how far along they're going to go on Epic Collections in time. I think the early 2000s is probably going to be the latest, because now they've got modern Epic Collections for newer stuff. So this might actually be the final Hulk volume. You know, they don't do these in order. I mean, there's a bunch of Hulk Epic Collections still to print. But as far as chronologically, this might be the last Epic Collection from the Hulk. We'll see. We'll see. So I got that. Now I also have more exciting Planet of the Apes stuff for you. I know, you're thrilled. I got this. This is Planet of the Apes Adventures. Planet of the Apes Adventures. This is from Marvel. Marvel has Planet of the Apes, the rights back to reprint Planet of the Apes stuff. And this is the original Marvel Years Omnibus. It is the smallest omnibus in existence, probably. Look how tiny this is. This is wee. It's a tiny, thin little omnibus. So, anyway, Planet of the Apes Omnibus. This reprints the color Planet of the Apes series from the 70s. Now, Marvel used to have black and white magazines. They had a series of black and white magazines. The Savage Sword of Conan was the greatest black and white magazine of their line. They had all kinds of cool magazines. Savage Sword of Conan was the best, but my second favorite was the Planet of the Apes magazine, which was a black and white magazine that printed Planet of the Apes comic book stories, original comic book stories, and also they adapted all of the films, all of the movies. And so you'd have a film adaptation, a bunch of really cool articles about Planet of the Apes, and an original story. And so this reprints the black and white stuff in color because they did a color comic book. And I only had a single issue of this. And this is the issue I had, actually, the first issue. And it has George Tuska art. And George Tuska, actually, he doesn't get a lot of credit. He's not the most loved comic book artist of all time. But he's really, really good. In particular on this series. Marvel didn't have the rights to the likeness of any of the actors, which only really makes a difference with Taylor in this book. We just have some big macho guy as Taylor. But one thing Tuska does in this is that he's really good with the expressions on the Apes. He's gotten some flack because he's always been kind of a cartoony artist, but he just does such a great job on this adaptation of the first Planet of the Apes film. And as movie adaptations into comic books go, these were all written by David Minch. I think he did every Planet of the Apes story in the Planet of the Apes magazine, the originals as well as the adaptations. And I could be wrong, but I feel like he did everything. And he does a great job. Probably the best movie adaptations I've ever read were the Planet of the Apes adaptations. So, but I didn't really need this because I have the original black and white stuff that was printed by Boom. Boom had the rights to Planet of the Apes. And in 4 volumes, this is volume 2, they reprinted every comic book story from that original Planet of the Apes magazine. And so that story I just showed you, it reprints it in black and white. And I discovered something interesting as I was going through this. And that is when they took the black and white stories from the magazine and made color comic books out of them, they cut a bunch of stuff out from the original movie adaptations. There are whole pages or just parts of pages and things have been flipped around and rearranged, but a bunch was cut out when they put them into color comic books because the original comic book stories in the magazines were longer. So that's interesting to me. So when you read these, you're not reading the entire adaptation. Hopefully Marvel, now that they've got the rights back, will reprint the original black and white comics as they were originally printed in the magazine. And that way they could print them uncut. Print the whole thing, because they did, in the color comic book, they only did, this only lasted 11 issues, which is why it's so small. And so they only did Planet of the Apes and Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the first 2 Planet of the Apes films. But in the black and white magazine, they do all the movies. They do them all. And a bunch of other cool stuff besides. It was great. It was a great comic book. I've probably talked enough about Planet of the Apes and everything else. I hope you enjoyed my weekend report. Roger, I guess I'll see you next week. I'm really worried about what condition the manor will be in when I come back. At least, you know, they're going to be like severed limbs and everything. It's going to be ghastly. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.